Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I am your host, Omar Khalid. Today is the 14th of July 2023 and these are the stories that we will be discussing during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the commitment from Afghanistan that is needed by Pakistan. This has been said many times before, but it is more pertinent now in the wake of all the incidents concerning our security apparatus that are happening in the last few days, whether what we see in Balochistan or in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. It is pertinent to see and look out for how Afghanistan is going to now finally react. The Foreign Office spokesperson also highlighted this very thing. She said Pakistan reaffirms its commitment to engage with Afghanistan, at the same time urges the Afghan authorities to fulfill their promises, because they said in the very beginning, and if you remember very well, the first statement by the Afghan interim foreign minister, Mr. Muttaqi, was that the Afghan soil will not be used for terrorism purposes against any of its neighbors. Let's hope Afghanistan continues with that commitment and goes back and looks at what is wrong as far as the trickling down of terrorist elements is concerned. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, today concerns Manipur and the fact that on the one hand, when Narendra Modi is going to France as a special guest for its Bastille Day, which is also being celebrated across the world today. At the same time, the EU Parliament has also passed a resolution that looks at India and asks India to look at what is wrong as far as what is happening in Manipur is concerned. Human rights need to be at the heart of EU-India partnership, says this resolution. How important is this partnership or this resolution, and how is it going to move India maybe to change its narrative or change its methodology as far as what is happening in Manipur is concerned? This is going to be our second story. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the latest situation as far as the floods in Pakistan is concerned. We know that there are many areas in Pakistan that are under the impact of floods. Sutlej River, for one, it has impacted some of the villages in Kasur district, and rescue operations are underway there as we speak. The new monsoon spell has begun. Islamabad also witnessed its first big monsoon rains this afternoon. So on the one hand, it's refreshing to see. On the other hand, the implications for many of the regions that are low-lying can be disastrous, and it is for that the organizations in Pakistan are working 24/7. Then we'll be talking about the predatory loan applications that are present online. We highlighted this, the case of a man from Rawalpindi who committed suicide because of the threats that were emanating from the people behind an online loan application from which he had taken a loan of a mere 13,000 rupees that had then swelled up very quickly to an amount that he could no longer pay back. The fact remains that the FIA has now launched a probe against this and other loan applications, and I think this is a move that was needed and it has now come at the very right time. And finally, we'll be talking about the strike that is being made by the Writers Guild, and now what we are hearing in the United States of America, let me precise that. And now the Hollywood actors are also going on strike along with the writers as well. This means that the actors will not be able to perform anywhere, or even act, or even do any kind of recording one way or the other till the strike ends. This is a daunting challenge for the actors, for an industry that is renowned for its films and its television. Let's see how all of this moves back. Will this put enough pressure on those who are wielding the power as far as getting a better life for the writers and the actors are concerned? Only time will tell. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the commitment that Pakistan has been asking for a long time from Afghanistan and continues to ask, as per the latest statement by the Foreign Office spokesperson and also our Chief of the Army Staff, who visited Balochistan to look after and to talk to all those who were affected by these latest terrorist attacks in the two areas in Balochistan. More in the following report.
Pakistan has been grappling with the challenge of militancy, but entire nation is committed to combat terrorism because peace was gained through the sacrifices of thousands of Pakistani citizens and gallant security forces, demonstrating the capability and resolve of security apparatus to uproot the menace of terrorism. Security forces thwarted a terrorist attack on the Zob garrison, and 5 terrorists have been sent to hell during the clearance operation. According to ISPR, at least 12 security personnel were martyred by terrorists in an early morning attack on the Zob garrison in northern Balochistan, and another attack in the Sui district. This was the second attack on security forces in Zob. Earlier, on the 2nd of July, militants attacked 3 checkposts of police, levies, and frontier corps on the Zob-Dera Ismail Khan highway in the Sherani district of Balochistan. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif paid tribute to the martyred soldiers. He said that their sacrifice for the homeland would be remembered forever. Security forces and the nation remain resilient and determined to thwart all such dastardly attempts of the enemy aimed at destroying the peace of Balochistan and Pakistan. There is urgency of coordinated regional counterterrorism efforts to deny terror outfits any sanctuaries and hold accountable all actors responsible for harboring terrorists.
AVM retired Ijaz Malik Saab, who's a senior analyst, joins us in the studio. AVM Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. It was a long time coming since you hadn't joined us for a show. Let's start on the situation of the TTP in Afghanistan, and this situation for which Pakistan has time and again asked Afghanistan to interfere. How can Pakistan, in your point of view, address this TTP challenge that is creeping into our security apparatus?
First of all, we should appreciate the statement given by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson. But while it is good, but it isn't enough because as we have seen ever since the regime, the current Taliban regime took over in Kabul, there has been a surge. There has been a surge because there was a jubilation in Taliban's as well as in the TTP various factions, because they were celebrating the withdrawal after a very long, 2 decades long campaign by superpower and the coalition partners. So that gave them, a psychological ascendancy to pursue their objectives. While the Taliban government, they deny any support to TTP factions, but definitely they have never exercised their leverage to help Pakistan, and all their commitments which they say that they will not allow their soil to be used against any neighbors or any other country, practically it hasn't been manifested.
But why isn't this commitment being properly given by Afghanistan, despite the fact that Pakistan has always been there for Afghanistan?
Interestingly, I was going through a program at Voice of America, and there one researcher, analyst, he said that probably Taliban somewhere, at back end, they want to use this as a pressure tactic to, gain certain leverage with Pakistan as regard their own, foreign policy is concerned. Whereas it should be the other way around. Pakistan, the kind of sacrifices we have given, kind of support we have given for this regime to be in place after withdrawal in Doha talks or elsewhere, and we are their lifeline supply. That's the fact, and we have never been able to encash that position. In fact, we should be talking to them from a position of strength, whereas unfortunately most of the time, not always, most of the time we just have been doing the normal parlays of the diplomatic culture. I think that isn't enough. A country, a people who only understand weapons, gun carrying, and the culture which has evolved for almost now decades, shouldn't we be talking to them, giving them the right message that if you do not support our cause where we want to contain the TTP, and if you do not allow us, we have been repeatedly telling them, but what have they done beyond just verbal commitments?
Let's talk a little bit beyond the TTP, and let's look at the multidimensional contours of Pakistan's terror threat. According to a recent report by the Center of Research and Security Studies, 267 fatalities have occurred of security personnel in the first 2 quarters of 2023. They make up around 93% of the fatalities during the entire preceding year. Why?
I think you can link it. Some of these incidences are definitely, in my humble opinion, they have their link, because most of it, some of course in the erstwhile FATA areas, and most of it is in Balochistan. Because the instability and reign of terror in Balochistan has direct effect on the CPAC. And now that
and of course there are the elements who do not want CPAC to succeed.
Yes, and these elements are, there are certain so-called friendly countries, or there are so-called international players who are otherwise apparently very benign towards us, but potentially, a growth of CPAC, the kind of, vigorous pursuance is being done by our governments and establishment. The second phase of CPAC, the ML1 project, for example, the mere unrest or this terrorism in the area adjoining the alignment of the ML1, it will just deter anybody to work there.
And of course we all know the intentions that are behind it, whether it be to destabilize Pakistan directly or indirectly, or destabilize any big project that Pakistan is involved with, including the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. I'd also like to understand, going a bit beyond as far as this terror threat that Pakistan is facing, there's another thing that has recently come to light, and this has been brought to light by the police in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. They said that one angle to terrorism is also target killing. There has been a lot of target killing, and most of it has been recognized, or the IS has said that it is behind most of these target killings of murders of several Islamic scholars as well as members of the minority communities in Peshawar. Looking at new facets of this terror threat that Pakistan is facing, what should be the contours, what should be the main highlights of our counter-terrorism roadmap?
Actually, there are few things where probably we have also not been able to pursue as we should have done. For example, the National Action Plan. Part of that which related to the military action or actions by the law enforcement agencies, that was hurriedly done, and it proved effective for that time period at least. But then the other things like registration of madrasas and de-radicalization plan all across the country, and certain other things which were supposed to be done by the civil government and particularly the provincial governments, that remains lacking. Secondly, purely from application of resources in kinetic domain, we were thinking that after we had done the successful operations in the tribal areas in the up north, in the KP and then the FATA, probably we would be able to divert some resources to take care of Balochistan, having stabilized these areas. But the civil governments in certain districts have not been able to take over the administration or management of those areas, and our enemies have also kept those simmering things alive, which denied us the option to divert some human resource as well as equipment resource towards Balochistan, where we could have done, because you need to understand the terrain and the landscape of both the provinces, whereas force application and support by the locals is possible in case of KP and the merged districts. The vast expanse of Balochistan terrain, it needs a lot of force presence there, and unless we have a dilution effect. We have to safeguard LOC, we have to be vigilant on our entire international border with India, because you can't trust them even for a day, and then we have to remain entangled in the KP and the merged districts. So from where we would be able to generate that much of effort to look after these emerging threats. So we need to take all stakeholders on board, where people should understand that their own stability, their own political future, their own financial and economic, social future is attached with creating a stable area all around in Balochistan, and CPAC should be regarded as a high value target. I mean, enemy is doing it as
but
a
that
target.
is what they have been targeting, not only
yeah.
that, but also any foreign interest in Pakistan, any element of stability as far as cooperation with other foreign countries concerned is being destabilized by such terror outfits. Speaking of terror outfits, you mentioned Balochistan and the attack that happened on Wednesday in both Sui and Job areas. They both were, the people behind it were, they belong to small, relatively unknown groups. What happened in Sui and Job areas, which of course resulted in the martyrdom of 12 soldiers and 1 civilian. 7 militants of course were also killed in the incident. What do we know about new terror outfits that are coming out and further destabilizing or trying to destabilize our country?
I think there could be the splinter of groups of the same major groups, and secondly, in guerrilla warfare, this is also a strategy that instead of just using one identity or two identities, if you use multiple identities, that gives an international impression that the entire the public or the people of that entire region, they are against the governments. So trying to portray a kind of state of an insurgency, whereas it is not the case. In case of Balochistan, there are few districts where there is a problem, mostly the southern, southwestern districts. Most of the tribes, they are very cooperative, they are as pro-Pakistanis as any one of us in Islamabad or elsewhere in Pakistan, and there are few tribes which have certain political issues, but they speak against federation or nationalism or sub-nationalist cause, but very few of them would pick up arms against their own people. But you see the optics of these two recent attacks, that if the law enforcement agencies, they themselves are not safe within their own fortresses.
But AVM Saab, there have been incidents in the past as well where we have seen former militants laying down their arms and calling for peace and asking others to join them as well. We've seen the recent incident in Balochistan as well. Do you feel this is something that could be further propagated in some way, for all the militants to lay down their arms, or a large part of the militants to lay down their arms and move towards peace and stability? Or do you think that the groups behind these militants, the different countries that are behind these elements, are so adamant in their desire to destabilize Pakistan that this might not happen?
In my opinion, because they have foreign funding, they have foreign people supporting them. So while we should continue working on that, but more effective and strategic approach would be that if we work on our youth, in Balochistan and make them realize that getting education, we provide them economic opportunities and engage them so they have a sense of ownership in whatever development goes anywhere in whether CPAC or beyond CPAC. So I think then we can create a firewall in between the hardcore militants who have international backing, and they will never be satisfied. And we can make this fire lane between these two segments, and that will work. Within a couple of years, once these youngsters, they get graduated from high-tech institutes and quality education, and they are afforded opportunities, economic opportunities within Balochistan and elsewhere in Pakistan, they would never pick up arm against the state.
But all right. But this said, whatever is emanating in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa through the involvement of the TTP, do you feel there could be certain measures taken in that regard as well? According to a report by the Pakistan Institute of Peace Studies, which is a think tank in Pakistan, it says the number of incidents has increased by 73% between August 2021, when the Taliban took over from the coalition powers in Afghanistan, and April 2023. What does it talk about as far as the security outlook of Afghanistan under the Afghan Taliban is concerned, and their control or non-control of other elements?
I would again say, at the cost of repetition, that the intent of the Taliban regime is questionable.
All right.
Because these attacks across the border, they are damaging the fencing that we have been able to after a lot of investment and hectic efforts. So if anywhere that fencing is compromised, that serves the purpose of any government in Kabul, because they do not still in their hearts they do not recognize that as
but
an
you're all right.
border.
This said, this is my last question to you, AVM Sab, also. Afghan interim government has always wanted to be recognized by the world. Since it took over, it said it wants to be recognized by the world, it wants to work with the world communities and all, but the world is not recognizing them. Don't you feel this sanctuary of militant organizations within Kabul, that is not only perturbing Pakistan but also China and Russia, is also one of the major reasons, apart from the human rights issues in Kabul as well, that will never allow Kabul to be recognized by the world? And in order to do so, they need to kind of have a rollback as far as these policies are concerned.
Just imagine, after having the commitment given to the international communities and nations that their soil will not be used to harbor terrorism against anybody, neighbors or beyond, why they couldn't do anything about Ayman al-Zawahiri? And ultimately America has to do the intelligence work, and then they took him through application of a drone attack. So that shows that not only that they are not fulfilling their commitment to us, but to the world at large. So that is one reason, because other issues are secondary. They can be debated. For example, the women participation in education or job opportunities, or certain other reforms, or the mantra of I would say human rights violation, but they can be negotiated because they have their roots or implication as far as their culture and their society makeup is concerned.
But for anything tangible to happen as far as the Afghan interim government is concerned, they need to look very intensely at what is wrong with their country and their management, and make amends before it is way too late, before the world not only refuses to accept but it also shuns them. I think it is time for retrospection for Afghanistan. This is also what has been highlighted by the Foreign Office spokesperson, that Afghanistan needs to look into it. And although Pakistan reaffirms its commitment to work with Afghanistan, but Afghanistan needs to act more responsibly.
Exactly, because there is a looming crisis of is a humanitarian crisis brewing there.
I'm really sorry, AVM Sahab, we would have continued our discussion. We're a bit short of time as far as
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, AVM retired Ijaz Malik Sahab, senior analyst, who have joined us.
Thank you very much.
Talk to us about Pakistan, Afghanistan and Afghanistan in general, and this nexus of little terrorist outfits or big terrorist outfits that are emanating into other countries from the Afghan soil. Thank you very much, sir, to have talked about this. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns Manipur. Now, Manipur has been witnessing ethnic clashes between the Kuki and the majority Meitei communities since the 3rd of May. 140 people have been killed, 60,000 people have been forced to flee their homes. A resolution has been passed by the EU Parliament in this very regard that talks about talks on India and exerts pressure on India to do the needful. More in the following report.
India is undergoing a transformation from a relatively secular state into a Hindutva-inspired Rashtra under the watchful eye of the ruling BJP. Under the poisonous Hindutva ideology, non-Hindus are relegated to a subhuman existence in the Rashtra. The Indian state's blatant disregard for human rights is most painfully evident in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where it continues to treat the local population like a conquered people. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, a bipartisan panel with the Congressional international mandate designated India as country of particular concern in its 2023 report. The intolerance towards minorities is contributing to the Manipur violence, where murder and mayhem is tearing apart the Indian state. The European Union Parliament has urged India to end violence and protect minorities in the country's northeastern Manipur state, criticizing nationalistic rhetoric adding to tensions. The Manipur government has also shut down internet connection and severely hindered reporting by the media, while security forces have been implicated in the recent killings. The politically motivated divisive policies are promoting Hindu majoritarianism in India, which is tearing the Indian states apart. International community should systematically and publicly raise human rights concerns with India, notably on freedom of expression, religion, and shrinking space of civil society at the highest level.
Dr. Shazia Anwer Cheema, she's an expert in international relations, joins us from Prague in the Czech Republic. Dr. Saiba, thank you very much to have joined us, and I'm sure that you'll be able to give us a more better perspective from the European point of view as far as this incident is concerned. Now let's come to Manipur. This is a scenic Indian state that borders Myanmar. Why violence since the last 2 months?
The violent history of Manipur is very long, like it's pre-partition, it's nothing new, and it was all engineered and orchestrated because Kuki tribes, basically the Manipur is of the Kuki tribes. And the Methi, the Shaivanism, Hindu believers, they were settled there after the Kuki tribes were having problem like security problems. So they were their net security providers at that time, ironically. But their violent history is nothing new, and they are facing this violence for a very long period. But in this government, like in BJP government, everything exceeds, everything touches the point of no return. And the Methi tribes are being provided arsenals, the weapons to fight back the Kuki tribes. And that's the concern of the European Union, because the international media and the concerned bodies, they are not blind. They know what's happening. It's their choice if they decided to have this selective blindness for certain issues. But it's our naiveness if we think that they do not know what's happening. So Kukis are basically living in the hill areas like the suburbs of the Manipur, and Methi tribes, they are basically Shiv Hindus, they are living in the center of the urban areas of Manipur. And they have political power, they have political backing from BJP, and the Assam Rifles, the law and order control of the Manipur is with Assam Rifle, and Assam Rifle is predominantly supporting the Methi tribes. So this conflict would not have reached to this limit if the power structure would have not been this much, it fluctuated because of the government support. So the most interesting thing in the EU resolution is that they have they have decided to send an envoy for religious freedom rights with the two perspective in mind, and that's the very important thing. The one thing is that the envoy will observe that if this is the natural situation, which usually governments find them like difficult to handle, or this is aiding and abetting by the state government. So this thing is in their mind, and that's why India is so reluctant, and India has registered its reservations on so many platforms, and even relating this issue with the colonialism and pointing out the idea like now the whites again will decide our fate and whites will tell what we have to do. This is our internal affair. No, sir, this is not your internal affair. I mean, more than 100 people are being dead, people are being beheaded, people are being burned alive, their properties are being burned, and the cookies, which you don't like, they are majority Christians, they are living in the dense forests, and you are targeting their religious places, you are targeting their houses under the pretense of encroachment. And would you like to define the encroachment, the idea of encroachment in a dense forest, and how you can create a boundary? Because urban encroachment is a different idea, but the forest encroachment and the tribal encroachment has a different definition. So you are demolishing, state is demolishing their property, state is demolishing their religious sites, and now state is saying that this is our internal affair and EU must not interfere in that, but EU
But
has
you know,
interfered.
Dr. Shazia, with due respect, you know, when you talk of India saying this is our internal affair, it brings me to light so many things that concern India, whether it be Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be any other incident. Everything is India's internal affair. You know, the country that calls itself the most pluralistic country in the world, the biggest democracy in the world, is neither of the two. Now, in this politics of hate that is being propagated under the BJP regime, this EU resolution by the EU Parliament proves to be quite, you know, how should I put it, an incisor into this politics of hate. When the EU Parliament urges India to end violence and protect minorities and criticizes the nationalistic rhetoric that is adding to tensions, do you feel India will react?
India is very sensitive about its bubble image which it has created, and recently India enjoyed the 1 minute fame of being the net security provider of the region by USA. So India is very sensitive about its image. That's the brighter side of it. So India, in my opinion, will comply with the idea, with the proposal, and will let the free journalists and the NY enter into the Manipur. But what will be the result of that? Because state has announced that our 40,000 weaponry has been stolen from the state weaponry. So, and all those weapons have been provided to the Metis tribe in Manipur and to the Assam rifles, and people are witnessing those assault rifles, those grenades which has been used against the Nagas and the Kukis. So India has to answer all those things, because India on state media has claimed that their weapons, 40,000 weapons, it's not a small number, it has been stolen. So imagine that if it has been stolen and it is in the Manipur, so what could be the result? So India has to see whether West is going to discover Gujarat chapter 2 or not. Because for the time being, you can put the things under the carpet, but for the longer run, things eventually come out. So the problem of being scheduled tribal rights, the problem of being Kukis and Nagas being insurgents, the way they use the word in Kashmir as well. So they are Chinese and Myanmaris. They are actually aiding the Kukis and Nagas. So they are terrorists and all the rhetoric, we are very familiar with that. So it's the time now to see whether the world is going to accept it or not, whether the Western world is again going to turn the blind eye, or let the India enjoy the selective blindness, or West is not ready for this. It's getting too much, because the videos are viral when people are being beheaded, and it's like we are living in 21st century. They are being burned alive. So 60,000 people are dislocated and they have no place to live. They are already under the Scheduled Tribe Act. So they do not own the place. They just own the forest and the hilltops, and you cannot burn them alive just by saying that they are either supported by Chinese or the Myanmars, or they are harvesting opium and they are smugglers, they are selling this or that. I mean, these are very petty issues. You cannot burn a person alive on these issues, and you cannot demolish 220 churches just because you think that they are insurgents and there is some insurgency going on. So Indian state is always, under the threat, under the external threat, and that's their popular rhetoric, that whatever they fail to control any situation, they just have this narrative that the so and so external forces are actually intervening, and this problem is because of that. So as I have
now,
told
Dr. Shazia, in this popular rhetoric that you yourself have mentioned that India uses time and again in order to divert attention from what it is actually perpetrating, and that is violence, that is barbarity, whether it be in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be Manipur in that case. But whether on one side Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a Muslim majority area, and we've seen the silence by a lot of countries in the West as far as that is concerned, as far as exerting pressure on India. When it comes to Manipur, now this concerns the Christians, Christians are directly implicated, and these Christians are, being victimized as this. Do you feel the reaction will be stronger now from the West? We've seen the EU Parliament with other countries follow suit.
As I have told you, like the resolution has the two ideas, and this is very important to reiterate that they have this in mind while putting this resolution in the EU Parliament, that we are suspecting that the government is actually abetting and aiding this conflict. So this is like more than something which we even can expect. So they said it like, in a very diplomatic way, like in the situations like that, sometimes government get helpless, and we are aware of the fact. So we want to send our envoy to observe that which is the case. Like case one, India is helpless and cannot handle the situation, so West will intervene and we will ask India what kind of help India wants. Or we have another thing in our mind, that India itself is party and India is actually fueling that conflict. So this is not a small thing, and you can see the hue and cry on Indian media, the way they are reacting to this statement. They are going back to colonialism because they do not have a logical argument to counter react to this argument. So they are going back. The only argument I have seen so far is that there is again like the whites will decide the fate of the browns. I mean, do you even think that this is an argument to present in this situation? This is not the fight between white and the colonizer and the colonists. So you don't have an argument actually. So you just have the fear that you are aiding Assam Rifles. You have the soft corner for Methi tribe. The Methi tribes are politically strong. They have their majority seats in the center power. They are occupying the urban areas of all the resources of Manipur, and you are pushing the Kukis and Nagas further and further into the dense forest. And now your only fear and your only reservation is that, as I am again quoting the example of Gujarat, the West will figure out that this is Gujarat episode 2. So how you are going to keep your face with that? Neither you can deny the envoy, because you are, the world's oldest democracy. You are the new economic power, and you have created your bubble image in front of the West, and you are very sensitive about that. So you cannot deny that up front. But if you allow it, it will be very devastating, and it will be very truth revealing for the world, and very defaming for India, in my opinion.
I like, Dr. Shazia, that you use the term Gujarat version 2 or Gujarat chapter 2. The fact remains that there are a lot of incidents that are quite similar as far as the methodology is concerned. If you remember well, when Gujarat happened, BJP Narendra Modi was a persona non grata. When he became Prime Minister, he wasn't allowed to even come to the United States and address their parliament, and recently he was a very important state guest in the US, and you said the 2 minutes of fame that he had as far as his visit to the US is concerned. Now he is going to France, and he is in France, and he is the special guest of the French government on the Bastille Day, that is the French National Day that is happening today, in fact, as we speak. On the one hand, it brings to mind a lot of, he is in France, which is one of the most secular, I should also say, the democratic countries across the world, at a time when a state in India, that is Manipur, is burning, when another region in India, Int'l illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, is being faced by barbarities. What does it say about Modi? What does it say about his total disregard of domestic politics?
We have to understand here the helplessness of the global north, and I use this term again and again, and this is the only term which can explain the situation in a better way. So world has been divided into global north and global south. So Pakistan used to be the net security provider of the region when this global north and south division was not that open and out in the environment. So and Pakistan is able to do that. Pakistan has a battle-hardened army. Pakistan has a very strategic diplomacy. So Pakistan knows how to contain the problem within. That's the word wants. Now the role has been shifted toward India because our policies are more toward global south. We have China is our very good friend. We have a very good relation with the Middle East. We have a very good relation with Turkey. So it's Western helplessness. In order to replacing us, they have to choose, and they don't have choice. They have to select and pick India to substitute us, and this is the bad timing for Modi, particularly because West is helpless. West need a base camp in the hub of the global South, but on the other hand, India is not only not competent to contain its own problem, let alone we can expect India to contain the peace and maintain the security of the region. So this is not just, you mentioned Kashmir and you mentioned Manipur. I mean, there are more than 20 other places where is unrest in India.
Agreed.
We can see Punjab, we can see all seven sister states of, from Mizoram to Nagaland. We can see the other end of the eastern border. And Kashmir is also there. So nobody who is in majority and not Hindu is safe and secure in India. So that India and West is looking forward to that India to be the net security provider of the entire region. So why India is being chief guest here and chief guest there? So in my opinion, West is helpless. West has no other choice. But that's also goes in our favor. So West is choosing India, but West scrutiny about India will be get tougher and tougher because West has to keep his face. West cannot face this. Everyone wants to be on the right side of the history. You cannot turn a blind eyes to the human atrocities which are happening right in front of you. So this is the double-edged sword for India. India has to put its own house in order, plus it has to maintain that artificial image which it has been creating like since long, and West has to somehow go along with India. But how? By reprimanding it, by putting India on leash. So whether the oldest Indian democracy, like the oldest world democracy, is ready to be on the leash or Western leash, that's their discretion. I mean, I will not give any opinion about that, but this is the situation. So do not get bothered about India being a chief guest here or chief guest there, because they don't have any other chief guest. So there is no pick and choose. It's just like India, so they have to do, because India is there as an arch enemy of China. So that's facilitate the narrative right now, the narrative. But
all right, Dr.
France
Shazia, my last question, I'd like a short response, but it has two facets to it. The first, you talk about the West having, the global North having no choice but to align with India despite all the violence and barbarities that it is perpetrating within its own country. How long before this global North plan backfires if whatever is happening in India continues? And B, you talked about the pressure by the West on India. The US Commission on International Religious Freedom has designated India as a country of particular concern in its report this year. What is and will be India's response to calls to end religious violence?
From the beginning, like in the start, I am expecting that India will retaliate and India will keep on saying that this is our internal affair. But behind the closed doors, it is not India's internal affair. If India has decided to become an ally of the West, and like global North had decided to put him make India as the eyes and the ears of the global South, they cannot let these things happen in the region, because they have bigger plans, they have bigger game plans, so they cannot afford these type of small hiccups. They cannot fight their humanity wars if their base camp is facing this planet's extremist atrocities of the century. I mean, I
All
don't
right.
know how to put
Dr.
it in the
Shazia,
right way.
I'd like your response to be a bit short. We're a bit short of time, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I didn't get your point. Did you ask me something?
Yes, yes, I was just saying, if you could, I just wanted to understand also the reports like that of the US Commission that has, criticized India for its human rights situation. Do you feel India will address these calls, or will it continue unabated?
If India wants to enjoy being the ally, or being that if India wants to prolong that 1 minute fame, India has to comply with that. But it's up to India, because the internal mess is so deep rooted, and it is so out of India's control. I don't know. I don't see that India can manage that. I don't see that India has capacity to do that.
I totally am aligned with what you've just said. This is a deep-rooted mess that India has, and it has had this since quite some time, and it has failed to address it, and it's trying to address it in a very barbaric way, in a very violent way, and this is not going to have a logical or a sane ending anytime soon or anytime in the future as well. I totally agree with you on that. Thank you so very much, Dr. Shazia Anwer. Cheema Sahab, expert in international affairs, joining us all the way from Prague in the Czech Republic. Let's come to our last stories very quickly. The first concerns the flood situation in Pakistan. The PDMA says that a rescue operation is underway in Kasur district after water from the Sutlej river eroded villages. Flood water has entered 15 villages adjacent to Sutlej. 4 villages are now deprived of electricity. Standing crops have also been swept away in these floods. The Met Department also says that there is going to be widespread rains from yesterday, that is the 13th of July, until the 17th. We've seen a huge spell of rain today in our capital city Islamabad as well. The flood forecasting division has also said that Sutlej was flowing in medium level flood at Ganda Singhwala in Kasur and low level at Suleiman Ki headworks. At the same time, whether it be the provincial government or our other authorities and agencies and the army as well, everybody is focusing on helping those who are in need, who are in the low-lying areas. So of course the people and the crops and the cattle are being taken care of as much as possible. Shahid Rahman Sahib has also tweeted about the new monsoon spell that has begun, saying it has brought with it a possibility of thunderstorms and heavy rains. Be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, whoever is in the low-lying areas. Next, the 9 suspects have been arrested and 19 others have been booked for allegedly blackmailing citizens through loan-giving mobile applications. This has been announced by the FIA. The FIA says the investigators have taken into custody a voice message sent by Mohammed Masood to his wife before taking his own life. In this very program, we highlighted this incident of this man who took his life because of these loan applications that are available online that threatened him to such an extent, and threatened with exploiting him to such an extent that he took his own life. And now the FIA has reacted to this. The team of the Rawalpindi Cyber Crime Circle has also is also now taking cognizance of this and doing the necessary. Mr. Masood had already taken a loan from an online app which was offered without a markup. The conditions include penalties. Amount soon ballooned to over 70,000 rupees, and this was an amount that he could not pay. It forced him to take loan from another online application, and then he ended in a debt trap. This is something that all of us also need to be very wary of, and we also need to be extremely careful about online loan applications that are available. Look at what are the terms and conditions before you say yes to any such application. Final story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the strike that is happening in Hollywood in the United States of America. The negotiators for Hollywood Actors Union have also recommended a strike after labor talks with the studios failed to yield an agreement. This sets the stage for the performers, the actors, the actresses who we see normally on our screens on films and television to join writers in picket lines. Now, Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists Union, which represents 160,000 members, has voted for a strike order. Now, this is going to have a long-term implication as far as the entertainment industry in Hollywood is concerned. We might see maybe less and less of films and television series that were supposed to be in production to come out in the near future if this strike continues. Let's see where all of this goes. We'll be highlighting and giving you the updates as far as that is concerned. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. It's the weekend. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you inshallah on Monday with new stories that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.